Wouldn't a simple safety solution for Formula One cars be to have closed cockpits as opposed to the halo? And the simple halo solution itself, how did that come about? These are Formula One questions we will be answering in this video. However, please like this video and subscribe to the channel before we proceed. Also, click on the notification bell to get notified of new videos. Safety in Formula One has remained the top priority for a number of years now. This begs the question, why are drivers still exposed and not protected in a closed cockpit, as in other forms of motorsport? It would be great to note that the concept of having a closed cockpit in Formula One cars has been discussed and even tested by the Formula One Association before the implementation of the halo in 2017. In that testing phase a few years ago, it was found that a closed cockpit is beneficial regarding safety, but one major flaw was raised: a lack of cooling for the driver, which proved more dangerous than not having a closed cockpit at all. To offset this, the Formula One Association went ahead and designed additional vents and piping to provide a sufficient cooling mechanism for the drivers, but then weight became a concern. These are just fragments of the problems involved in implementing a cockpit into Formula One cars. Let's dive right into the other ones. After two chillingly similar incidents in 2 weeks in 2019 killed one driver and left another seriously injured in the hospital, talks of driver safety in Formula One swirled virulently. And one concept that seemed to come up by fans, drivers, and team bosses was a closed cockpit. But despite the shocking nature of the tragic accidents that happened to those drivers in 2019, a closed canopy Formula One car was not the answer. Obviously, the idea of having something to stop or deflect debris before it reaches the driver appears to negate the chances of such accidents occurring again. But the problem with the idea is its practicalities. When you begin to consider how easily so many things could go wrong, you strongly reconsider it. Of course, the primary concern is safety. After all, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to realize that having a roof between you and an oncoming danger gives just a little bit more protection. But if you start putting a car in every conceivably dangerous position and situation you can, upside down, on top of another car, on fire, filling with smoke, or embedded in a tire wall, you realize rather quickly that the boxes a canopy needs to tick are tricky. Let's go into the details of creating this hypothetical cockpit. First, you need something strong enough, perhaps up to the same standards as the main tub, to deflect the kind of debris that could harm a driver. Yet Formula One teams, always after any minor lightweight advantage, will want it as light as possible. You're going to need something secure when the car is traveling at 300 kilometers per hour. You don't want it flying off or even opening mid-race, yet easy to remove once the car is stopped. It has to be opened easily from both the inside and outside. A visually impeded driver from smoke or other gases, like Kiki Räikkönen in a canopy car when he had the fire extinguisher problem in practice for Malaysia that had white smoke billowing up into the cockpit, could potentially be stuck in a closed cockpit. When a car is on fire, a driver is incapacitated, and the vital seconds that track workers spend remembering whether the car is a canopy which opens from the left, right, slides forward, or opens after knocking 3 times, and the password is Open Sesame, can be vital determinant as to whether the driver dies or survives. The locking mechanism of our hypothetical cockpit has to be simple enough for the marshals to operate quickly, with potentially every team having the same mechanism. Now to an important question. Can you see a dozen or so Formula One vehicles coming up with the same mechanism? No. Look at the range and variety of the cars that take to the tracks occasionally. They don't usually agree on the same design for their vehicles. Each wants to appear as unique as possible, and this would apply to the hypothetical cockpit too. And that's before you consider the designs that will appear in the junior formula. The cockpit would have to open from every conceivable angle. What would happen in a car with a canopy that opens on one side when that side of the car is damaged? The driver would be trapped. In a situation where every second is vital, you can't have track workers struggling with the cockpit while the driver struggled with his life. Let's deviate from the severe hypothetical question to simple, visual ones, like what if it rained? The curvature that an F1 canopy would need if we are preserving the level of vision afforded by an open cockpit would render normal wipers useless. So what happens if it rains? Well, fans of touring cars will be familiar with the chemical solution, often called Rain-X, that a team will squirt on a windscreen to help the rain run off the screen quickly. But that's not foolproof. Those cars have a wiper to work with the chemical, and you can't expect a driver to pit just to have the chemicals applied if an unexpected rain shower appears. And what about other things that will affect vision? What if a driver is behind a car dropping one of the various vital fluids in Formula One cars? His vision considerably suffers. What happens if a driver goes off and has his front wheels kicking up grass and dirt, not to mention the ever-present rubber marbles, onto his screen? Worse still, what if a driver is behind a car that goes off and has the lifting power of 4 wheels throwing rubbish at him? Of course, the obvious answer is a screen tear-off. A bigger version of the visor tear-offs we're all used to seeing dispatched by Formula One drivers several times a race. A whole screen tear-off exists in NASCAR, so it is possible, but unless a driver is going to come in every time his vision is blocked by oil, water, grass, or anything else, ruining his race, then having half-blind drivers going around is as much a safety risk as the potential for flying debris injuries. Then there is the fact that having a screen in front of you doesn't automatically mean you're safe. Look for footage of Australian touring car driver Craig Lowndes entering a loose tire at Bathurst. Even with a screen and a roof, the deformation is likely to make a closed cockpit Formula One car very uncomfortable, to say the very least. In the recent NASCAR restrictor plate melees, the cars of Carl Edwards, Ryan Newman, and Casey Kahn all showed considerable deformation on their screens after impacts, and there was a hole in Edwards' case. Of course, the designs of V8 supercar or NASCAR screens will be a million miles removed from F1 canopies, but the damage suffered in these cases show that a canopy is not the guaranteed fix it might be made out to appear as. If, in 2019, Henry Surtees had been 3 feet behind where he was that Sunday, the tire would have bounced either harmlessly over his car or landed on the nose of the vehicle, with Surtees limping back to the pits or pulling off the track with a damaged front wing or front suspension. If Massa had been 6 inches to the left of where he was, the spring would have missed his helmet, glanced off the engine cover, and maybe hit the rear wing. It would have been the public speaking of Massa starting the Grand Prix 10th because of rear wing damage, ruling him out of qualifying's final season. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button and consider subscribing to the channel. Also, we would appreciate it if you could leave a comment in the comments section below about what you think about cockpits and whether you agree with our opinions on them or not. Finally, for more thoughtful Formula One videos like this, click on the notification bell so you know immediately when we upload new content.